Well, welcome to our American friends. You join me here in South Shields, again in the northeast of England. And I'm joined today by Dennis and Brenda Greer, who are serving at our Westow Road Baptist Church in South Shields. They've been here for a number of months, and we've managed to interview them just before they go back to the States. Dennis, for our American friends, perhaps you can tell us why you signed up for American Interims in the first place.
I think one of the things that really grabbed our attention, because I'd gone into retirement mode and didn't know what God wanted to do with us. So I felt Him call me to go to seminary and didn't know exactly His purpose in that, but I knew He had a purpose in that. So one of the things that really got our attention, Brenda and I had both been involved in ministry and different kinds of ministry in several different churches, but we had never done that together. We'd always done men's ministry and women's ministry separately, and we saw this as an opportunity to really minister together, to be a team, and we think we're a pretty good team, you know. So that really jumped out at us really quickly. Also, we looked at the needs within this type of position with American Interim Pastors, and we had lots of experience with Bible studies and small groups and discipleship and all those things that are involved in this ministry. So we just saw it was a great fit and saw that God had opened this opportunity for us.
Now, I know there was quite a bit of preparation before you came over. Perhaps you could tell us what impressed you about that preparation work that went on.
Chuck McComb certainly does a great job of that. When we signed up with American Interim Pastors, he sent me loads of documents online so I could read about how churches operate in the UK, because it's very different than how churches, even Baptist churches, operate in the United States. What their structure is like. That was invaluable, because neither of us had ever set foot in the UK and certainly hadn't worked at churches here, so it was good to get that background on differences. He also included lots of things as far as just doing life in the UK and how it's different, which helped a lot. We realized when we came the first time, there's no way that can prepare you for the differences, because it is a very, very different place to live from the United States, especially from Texas. It's very good, but it's just very different. Everything has a different name. The language is different, especially up here in the Northeast. So you can't really be completely prepared for that, but Chuck does a great job. And then he and Pat had Brenda and I down for a weekend, and they really went through a lot of the customs and cultural differences, and we got to spend an entire weekend with them just talking about doing life in England and ministering in churches here. So I felt like we were very, very prepared when we came the first time.
Most importantly now, what was the reason why you accepted the call to come to Westow Road here in cold northeast England?
Well, when we signed up with American Interim Pastors, we prayed about it, thought about it a lot, but really we realized that when a church in the UK issued an invitation to us, that's something that they had not done lightly or quickly. They had prayed about that. They had looked at different candidates, and that really was God's decision for them to choose to call us. So we decided from the very beginning that when a church in England would give us an invitation, that we would see that as God's invitation to us. And yes, we would pray about that, but we would pray about that from a position of, this is what God wants us to do. And God, if you don't want us to do this, then you need to show us, because we're taking this as a yes from you.
Brenda, I'm sure a lot of the American ladies watching this will be interested in hearing from you what sort of preparations really helped you to settle in quickly here in the UK.
Well, before we came, the time that we had to spend with Chuck and Pat McComb was priceless. The time that we spent just talking about the culture and the differences, because while people are very much the same on both sides of the ocean, there's different culture here than there is in the United States. And Pat was especially good for me as she sat with me and talked about the differences I would find in my home and maybe in the way people do things here. And so that would be the thing that I would say was probably the most helpful, was to sit and just chat with her. From this side of the ocean, it was very helpful to spend time visiting with Angela Pino, who's the church secretary. She and I had actually an accidental Skype one day when we didn't even realize that both of us were online, and happened to see each other pop up, and just had a really quick impromptu visit with her, and just to know how excited they were about us coming and all the things they were doing to our house. They had been shopping and spent time at Asda picking out little decorative things, and totally outfitted the kitchen. I mean, just completely outfitted the kitchen. I couldn't even imagine anything else being put in my kitchen that would be any more helpful than the things that they've put there. So all of that together just helped to kind of ease some of those worries that as a woman you have as you come into a new country, and so all of that was very helpful.
Dennis, share for the folks back home what have been some of the joys that...
Well, anytime you do ministry, it's relationships, and that's always the greatest joy. Getting to know people, especially getting to see God work in people's lives, and see them see God maybe a different way through Bible studies and through prayer time. That's always the greatest joy. As those relationships deepen, I think actually even seeing God in each other has been good, for all of us. So that's been by far the greatest joy. But there is that, I think, stepping out in faith, going to a country you know nothing about, having never been there before, and trusting that God called you there, so it's going to be good. But I don't think we had any idea just how many joys there would be, and the way we've seen Him provide for us here. It's just been fabulous, and it's been fun. We've loved living here, as different as it is. We have absolutely loved living in England. We love your history. We love your culture. But most of all, it gets back to those relationships.
And Brenda, I'd like to ask you the same question. What joys have there been in your ministry whilst you've been here?
Most of the people in English churches are women, and so it's very important that the pastor's wife really be ready to do ministry herself, because there's going to be a lot of people in English churches to be ministered to. It's been a blessing to bring some of the concepts of Bible study that we've enjoyed in America for so many years, some of those concepts into the English churches. In this particular church, we've had women in our home for Bible study, as well as in other women's homes. So the American pastor's wife has got to be prepared to participate in all of that, to be a part of all the things that go on at the church. In this particular church, there's activities for the older ladies, which is just a real blessing to get to spend time with those senior adult ladies, as well as community outreach. There's a day of the week that we meet for coffee at the church, and just to be able to get in there and visit with the people that come through the church door. It's just a lot of fun, and ultimately the things that I see happening here is that the things, especially concerning Bible study and women's ministry, I see that these women at this church have really grasped that whole concept of what that's all about, and really desire to carry that forward even after we're gone. In fact, they're already excited about the next pastor's wife who's coming and how she's going to fit into that.
Finally, Dennis, can you give some encouragement, some words of encouragement to those that might be thinking about signing up to be an American Interim, or to churches or individuals who might be thinking about supporting the ministry?
Well, it is challenging, I'll say that, but if you've done ministry, all ministry is challenging, but there are amazing opportunities here. A lot of people in the States would consider England a post-Christian nation, but we certainly see God at work here. It is different than a lot of places in the United States. Your neighbors and the people you meet on the street, church attendance isn't as high. But what we found is people are much quicker to engage in conversation when we start talking to them about church or about the Lord. Maybe they haven't really thought about God much in the last generation or so, or last number of years. But they're much more open-minded to talk, and they're much more honest. And we've had some great conversations. We personally find evangelism easier in England than we do in the United States, and I think that's been a real positive for us, the willingness of people to talk about their relationship with the Lord or lack of. They're just very, very honest. But it is a vibrant ministry. Anytime we come in to the UK, you always see lives changed, and it's great to get involved with Bible studies and just get involved with people's lives. So I would highly recommend it. It is definitely fulfilling, and it's badly needed as well.
And Brenda, what would you say to people to encourage them to consider either coming as a couple to serve as interims, or to support the work of American Interim Ministries?
Well, what I would want to say to Americans that are coming, to American women that are coming, is that don't be afraid. I mean, it is a fun place to do ministry. You're going to learn a lot of new things, just coming to a new country, and just it gives you a view of a country that you don't get if you just come as a tourist. If you come and you live here, you get to know your neighbors. You get to know the people that are in and out of the church every day, whether they're church members or like at Westow Road, we have a children's nursery that's there. You get to know those young parents. I mean, it's a lot of fun, and very quickly they incorporate you into everyday life at the church, and so there's nothing to be worried about.
And Brenda, also, what would you say to churches that are thinking of supporting American Interim Ministries?
Certainly churches that have the opportunity to participate in this ministry will receive a huge blessing, because we really see the fields as being ripe for harvest here. People are very willing to talk about spiritual things. Many times it doesn't go beyond, well, I was christened at such and such church. But then sometimes there are those that come back and there's more questions to be asked and to be answered. And so churches that are wondering what the fruit of a ministry like this might be, I would want to put those fears to rest, because there is a lot of ministry to be done here. The churches are very anxious for help. They really like the fact that there are people that want to come from America to participate in ministry here. And so as far as churches participating in that, I would think that would be a great thing to do, is to support a pastor that's coming to do this type of ministry.
Well, thank the two of you very much indeed. We wish you Godspeed when you go back over the pond.